Hello, and welcome to Eramis Soccer, where we will have different guests to discuss England's journey through the Euro 2024 tournament. And today, dressed out in what looks like a lovely retro jersey there, Shaun, we have Mr. Shaun Spencer, who long coaching career in the game, which includes a spell as a fitness coach at Blackpool with former England star Paul Ince. Is that right, Shaun? In
Some years, 2013, 2014.
Nice. Ince, one of my favourite England players, to be honest with you, in my younger years. I thought his performances at Euro 96, obviously overshadowed by Gaza, and a little bit underappreciated in England history. What are some of your favourite memories working with Paul?
I think it's very, very interesting because I've been on both sides of it. So I've worked closely with it. We became good friends during our A license. I ended up taking out this Reading youth player, and then he returned the favour in the following game on our A license, and then we got into a bit of an argument, and then that's how we became friends. So kind of fitting way to become friends with Paul Ince, I think. Yeah, and then from there, when he got the Blackpool job, I came in. He came in February, finished the season out, and then I came back end of that season, going into the 2013-2014 season. And I loved every minute of it, to the point where during the World Cup break, when he was at Reading, I went over to Tenerife to work with him. They were doing some like warm weather training, and some of the things that you learn from ex pros like that is the detail that they're able to go into. I think I'm very good with sort of the X's and O's, and I enjoy the sort of the tactical side of things. But the ex pros just understand that detail of like how a player should move, and then passes that can be made and how to make them. But if we got, I'll tell you a little story here just quickly, Stuart. So one of the biggest things, we had this like fines. So if you were late or if you didn't wear something correctly, you would get a fine. And I would call it kangaroo court. So because I was like one of the younger coaches at the time, I would get fined for absolutely everything. Pretty much single-handedly paid for the Christmas do. But anyway, so we had an away game down in London, stopped in the hotel, and dinner was 7 o'clock. So me, Tony Warner, and Tomo were sat down there, and they've got this brilliant spread of food, chicken, salmon, desserts. So I'm sat there and I'm like, Tony, I'm going in. I'm going in. And he said, well, you're going to get fined. And I said, I'll get this eaten before. So anyway, sit down, I have soup, come back. Tony goes up, gets soup, because if he comes down and sees that we're eating before he sat down, we're in trouble. Massive fine. So anyway, long story short, we end up going through like a 3-4 course meal. Me and Tony Warner, like he's 6'4", 6'5", big guy. So we can both eat. And then anyway, an hour later, it's 8 o'clock. Alex Ray comes down and says the gaffer's going to take us for a Chinese. And he's like, so you haven't had, have you? And we're like, no. Me and Tony just looking at each other. Anyway, we go across the road to this Chinese buffet. And of course, he knows that we've because he knows me and Tony are not waiting. So we had about 6 or 7 courses at this Chinese. Me and Tony are just looking at each other. And the point when you've ate so much, you're just sweating. You've just got meat sweats. And then he's just, again, he just knows. And I think that kind of sums him up. He just has that like sense of humor where he just likes pressing people's buttons and winding people up. But yeah, I love him. I love him.
So long story short, you had a fight with Paul Ince and then became friends, and you and I became friends, and now we might have a fight. Of course, we're going to talk through this England game. v Slovenia. We're going to talk through the tournament in general, but let's work through it, a section at a time, and we'll start with the lineups because I do not remember an England team where everyone was this ready for the starting lineups to be announced, so we can just dissect them. But first, fun fact about this game: this was the only game in the Euro group stage where La Liga Player of the Year winners faced off against each other. Interesting. Not a game that involved Spain, not Toni Kroos. One was obviously Jude Bellingham, and the other one was Jan
I've
Oblak.
no idea.
Jan Oblak, the Slovenia goalkeeper who could do no wrong during Atletico Madrid's Champions League run and entered COVID, if you remember, as, in many opinions, the best in the world. So there's a bit of trivia, if you're listening, that you can drop on people and they won't know. The only game in the Euro group stage with La Liga Player of the Year winners facing off against each other was, of all games, England v Slovenia. England make one change. It couldn't have been a less exciting change. I understand it logically, but it's Trent out in centre mid, and it's Conor Gallagher. I don't think anybody was happy about it. Anybody was excited about it. But I think what you have to accept as an England fan is it is what it is. If there was going to be sweeping changes, I believe they would have been made in this game, because if we lost this game, we would have still went through. It's the last game we play without our tournament existence on the line. So if we weren't experimenting here, we're not going to experiment now. This narrative of Bukayo Saka moving to left back now is lunatic talk. It's not happening. Gareth is clearly very set on grinding this tournament out with a very, very clear core group. Thoughts on the 11, Shaun? We spoke to James Beattie and Warren Barton so far. The first time we spoke to you. So what are your thoughts on this 11? What are your thoughts on the England selections throughout the group stage?
I would say so. The Trent Alexander. Let's just start with that one. So I don't think he played particularly well in there. But like you just said, in a game where we're already qualified, and if that's the angle that you want to take, do you not give him a little bit more time in there? That would be my question on that one. So, but I would say other than that, the team's solid. I think you can do 1,000,001 different things with the starting lineup. I honestly don't think. I don't think that's the issue. Again, you can change out Kane, you can change out Saka, you can rotate players, move players, and I think you're going to get the same result with this England team. I don't think it matters too much.
I would like to see Rice, Ford, and Bellingham. I don't know where this narrative that Jude can only exist as a 10 came from. He didn't start with England as a 10. He didn't play for Dortmund as a 10. Luckily, we've got a podcast last week that's shown I'm not just doing after the fact hindsight here, but I was excited about Kobbie Mainoo. When England drew 2-2 with Belgium, he might have been the best player. If not, he was the second best player. So I was expecting to see more of him, and I think he justified that. But yeah, it is what it is. We're going to see Declan Rice. We're going to see the back four. We might see Luke Shaw. We're going to see Foden, Jude, Kane and Saka. Just seems to be is what it is. The one thing I will say is the last club season, that front four went for 140 plus goals. So any other country you got to think is starting them, or at least three of them as well, in the same vein of form. Some familiar names for me on the Slovenia team. Oblak, obviously, I think he's the best goalkeeper on the field here. I like Jordan Pickford. I think Jan Oblak's a better goalkeeper. Ben Sesko, I remember him from the European runs of Leipzig, if I'm remembering right. And Andras Sparar, I definitely remember as a lifelong Middlesbrough fan, loved him at Middlesbrough, was very excited. I am going to check with you at the end to see if I'm ridiculously biased, but I thought he was the best centre forward on the field, maybe even the best player on the field, but we can get to that later. Anyone else on the Slovenian team of note to you before this game kicks off?
Not really. I thought individually, I think they've got solid individuals just all across the park. I don't think there's any particular weak links. Yeah, just a good team of players willing to work with each other.
Yeah. So I think one thing worth bearing in mind when we come to this game, England are through anyway. Slovenia need a draw that would be very historic in the history of Slovenian football. I think sometimes England fans forget how important these games are to other teams. Landon Donovan on the American TV feed said he was surprised by the volume and the numbers of the Slovenian crowd, which is good to see. You know, I know Scotland had some things to say about population being the reason they struggle, but he's a nation, passionate nation punching above their weight. I think what's worth bearing in mind is England come into this game with the lowest XG combined in the tournament, and it gets lower. So this is not a useless England team. It's just not necessarily a very attacking England team. Now, Slovenia come out here in a pretty old school 4-4-2, right? It's a front true press. It's two banks of four. It's what we grew up on. It's like the prime Alex Ferguson teams. And I did expect England to do better with it because I think systemically you could have had Rice and Gallagher man for man with the two centre mids, which would almost give Jude a free roll. You could have Foden and Saka, you know, one of them come into a pocket of space to be a second 10 and one run in behind. And I would have thought systemically it would have been pretty easy for England to build here, send on a fullback, but the reality is that was not the case. In your experience, when you're playing in a 4-3-3 against a 4-4-2, what kind of matchups do you try to emphasize, and where do you try and attack?
Exactly what you said in the middle, because you've got the extra player. Now I think going to like I always think, look, why are they struggling? Because on paper, tactically, you know, England should dominate that, and I don't mean just player for player. I mean like tactically, because they've got extra players there. I think the biggest thing you just referred to Mano, who was, you know, the reason for it is he's just playing a little bit quicker. I think that's it. I think it's just a little bit slow in the areas where, you know, Bellingham should be free.
Yeah.
If you're playing in that, if you're playing in the middle against an organised, disciplined team that are going to compact the middle, you just have to do it quickly. You know, you have to move the ball quickly, and I think that's the problem. We've taken advantage of that. But yeah, you know, one of the ways I like to play, it's gone very popular in the Premier League, is the box midfield, because most teams started playing free in the middle, so you need to find that extra player. So if you can have four in there, whether it be a diamond or, you know, one of the strikers pulls back, however you want to do it, just to create that overload and play through the middle.
Well, this could be exactly the reason for Foden playing wide, right? The intention that it ends up as a box midfield.
Yeah.
All the Foden players have been coming central. I think an advantage of the 4-4-2 is I do believe centre-backs have got very, very comfortable marking one forward nowadays. And this dynamic of having both the centre-backs man marking no cover, sometimes you can see it's uncomfortable. It's so unfamiliar now. Like we had one play in the third minute where it's a high ball, Spara, it's the old school big man, little man flicks behind for Sesko. And England just look uncomfortable with it. Again, in the fifth minute, the ball goes to the back post. It gets headed back across by Sesko. And headed back across by Spara. Sesko heads it right at Pickford. But England look a little nervous. And then as a contrast, in the 10th minute, Kane drops really deep, so there's no centre forward. He plays in Foden. Foden gets in and crosses to Saka at the back post. And there's a fullback on Saka, and there's two uncovered centre backs between Foden and Saka. So it's almost like you're never going to score. And to me, that was a very, very glaring difference in the attack. Like Kane is great at dropping, he's great at building, but there was much more of a threatening spearhead to me with that Slovenian front two than there was with England. I mean, England have 71% possession here, but when it's all said and done, They're playing against the best goalkeeper in the world at one point. He makes 3 saves. They're all right at him. It's job done for Slovenia defensively, but some of it is done for them because when you have a checking Harry Kane, 2 uncovered centre-backs and Foden and Saka being accounted for by full-backs, it's not very threatening in the final third, is it?
No, no.
Now, it wasn't the
It's
case, if you remember. Remember when prime Raheem Sterling, where we had one run out of Sterling going into the Euros, where it was something like 15 goals in 20 games. So Kane was checking then, but Sterling was almost playing centre forward. Foden and Saka, to me, have never picked up that goal scoring edge that Sterling brought into the last Euro tournament.
Yeah, well, Foden wants to do that though, doesn't he? He wants to be in the little spaces between the midfield and the defenders. He's not going to do what Sterling loved to do and get behind the back four. That was Sterling's game. And again, I think this is one of the issues we're having with Kane up there because he does drop in because he likes to link, but he doesn't have, like at Tottenham when he had Son running in behind him. Like all the players at the moment, Foden and Bellingham, Saka, whoever's in that bit, are all kind of in the same area.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. 17th minute. And by the way, the same area is paying off because 71% of the ball is no joke. What
Yeah.
it means for all the numbers up, you're getting in the middle third. You're not really getting numbers up or even 1v1 and 2v2 to goal. 17th minute, yellow card for Trippier. Foul on the right back. I'm going to butcher this name. I do apologize to very,
Do
very
better
few
than me.
Slovenian listeners we will have. But Karnisnik, I believe, is advancing, plays a good build. Sporar wins a free kick out wide. At this point in the game, I'm thinking 2 things. One, England are second best in the opening 20 minutes for me. And 2 is Sporar, and I know I'm going back to my Middlesbrough bias, but has an unbelievable ability to consistently impact the game as a centre forward with very little pace. He's always using the foot away from the defender. It's always a directional touch, and his body's always planted firmly between defender and the ball. And he's just a problem. Like, am I biased or is this guy elite? What are you saying, Shaun?
Yeah, I think it's that kind of old school striker, where they're able to create these just half a yard.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Kane, that was Kane's game for a long time until he became so important where he ends up becoming, linking play and stuff like that. But yeah,
Yeah. For me,
being able to
sorry, you were saying?
no, I was just going to say to be able to find any sort of space at that level is elite.
Yeah, I thought Gahey was struggling with him. And I do think there is a lot a young centre forward can learn from Andres Sporar because we would all love to have the pace and the in behind of Jamie Vardy. We would all love to have the height of Peter Crouch. We would have all love to have the strength and presence of Didier Drogba. But the fact is, there is ways to impact the game regardless of the hand you dealt. And I just think this guy's a wonderful example of it. Now, it's against the run of play, but in the 20th minute, we have an England goal. It is a wonderful goal if it stands. There is a bit of play down the heavily criticised left flank. Kieran Trippier passes to Declan Rice. It's a one-touch ball split in the centre-back and the full-back to Foden. It's a one-touch cross. It's a one-touch finish. Foden to Saka. It's beautiful. It's a great goal. It's offside. VAR disallowed it. It is offside, so you can't cry about it. But there's a little bit of a flash of what England could do. And I am going to be very optimistic here. If England are going into games and letting up XGs of 0.25 like they did against Serbia and 0.19 like they did here, once or twice might be enough, man. Like maybe they hit a few goals tomorrow, but if they get into the last 8, the only way I see games being won is 1-0, 1-1 on penalties, maybe a maximum of 2-1. And as much as the front 4 isn't firing, they're still all capable of this in a lightning strike fashion. And until they're out of the tournament for that reason, I believe England will be dangerous. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think when you've got the quality that we have with attacking players, and the game is close, 0-0, 1-1, you've always got a chance, especially if you are defensively solid. Now, my question is, do we have another gear if we concede against a good team?
Don't know.
Because that's the
But
thing.
I think the plan is just to not find out and not let any goals in. Would be
Yes,
nice.
because that's the thing, isn't it? Like you look at, say, Germany or Spain or even Austria, and you're like, if Austria go 2-0 down in the first half, like you can see how they could get back into the game against anybody. The same with any of the other countries. Us, it's like, do we have that second gear? Because we haven't seen it yet at this tournament. Now, it's also been enough to get us, top of the group and get us through. So that's what I want to know.
Mm.
Is this next gear?
So one thing that I don't think worked, but one thing I do think happened. We don't have copyright, so I can't put game clips up. But if anyone's watching and interested, and you screenshot at 25:38 on the clock in the first half, there's a few incidents in this opening quarter of the game where John Stones does advance into centre mid. He gets 5 to 10 yards in front of Gahey. It's almost like shades of the FA Cup performance that was really famous, where he was going in and out of centre mid. I actually
Mm-hmm.
think England tried to break a line with Stones. Just didn't happen for whatever reason. The execution wasn't good enough, but it looked to me like a wrinkle they'd tried to put in of moving one of the centre backs up, having a back three shape, maybe a 3-1-4-2, and play through him a little bit. I think there was an intent there. I just don't think it was done well enough to leave an imprint. Did you notice that? What do you think of that?
Yeah, and again, one of the reasons why Guardiola brought Stones in was because of that quality that he has, with the ball. And I think what you just said is my number one concern with England. I feel like they have ideas and then throw them out too quickly. So like the Trent Alexander's like an example of that.
Yeah.
There was talk about him playing in midfield, that he could do the role, and then it's like, oh, we're going to change that real quick.
The
And
weirdest
I
thing
feel
about the Trent experiment is we had 4 friendlies before the tournament, and 2 of them were against Belgium and Brazil, which is a
Mhm.
significantly higher level than Bosnia and Iceland. So to start Gallagher next to Rice and Menu next to Rice in the Belgium-Brazil games and then not do that in the tournament, that seemed weird to me.
Yeah,
Seemed weird to me. Um,
yeah.
and I think they've both done better than Trent, to be honest with you, when they came on. 28th minute, another flash that makes you think a goal might come. Foden gets the ball, he drifts in central, which again, the 4-4-2 can be vulnerable to against the front three, right? But then like
Hmm.
Donovan, who I think is an excellent announcer personally, I know not everyone agrees, but he has come out with a worldie of a stat where in a system where Kane and Foden are in the front three, and you mentioned the box midfield, which I think is part of this design where Foden just comes in and makes it a midfield four.
Hmm.
Going into this game in the tournament, Foden has completed 1 pass to Harry Kane and 2 to Jordan Pickford. Ouch. That is
Right.
brutal. That is absolutely brutal. To have a floating central winger and a centre forward with obvious intent for them to play off each other and to complete 1 pass in 2 games. And maybe there was a pass in this game, maybe there wasn't.
Well,
Brutal.
you could see Foden's frustration with Kane when Foden would do a move or would be trying to pass into Kane, and they just weren't on the same page.
Yeah.
And my thinking is that sort of Man City Guardiola effect. I just think they are used to a certain system, certain way of playing, players moving a certain way that is different to what, essentially here Harry Kane's been playing.
Yeah, fair enough. The real shame is the number 9 that Foden plays with at Man City was actually born in Manchester. Erling Haaland. What could have been?
I know.
Uh, Here we have a shot from Kane and a Foden free kick, saved by Oblak. They're not troubling. How good's Oblak, Sean? Is he best keeper in the world? Is he top 3? Is he top 5? What do you got right now?
I mean, I like him. I think my favourite goalkeeper, if I'm being really honest, is in this tournament has been Donnarumma for Italy. I think he got him into the 16.
Yeah. Okay.
But he's him.
Let's be controversial. Is he better than Jordan Pickford? I think he
Oh
is.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Again, there's a little.
And I like Jordan Pickford. I think this is I think this game was the game where he tied the all-time record for clean sheets at major tournaments with England. No joke, given he wasn't playing behind John Terry and Rio Ferdinand and Sol Campbell and some of the other world-level centre-backs we've had. I think it's a really impressive thing, but yeah, I think Oblak's even better. This Slovenian right-back who's fantastic, Karnisnik, drives to the byline, has his cross blocked by Gehi. We have a little panic about VAR, handball, but it's fine. Trippier gets a cross in to Conor Gallagher and Harry Kane. That's a big chance, isn't it? I don't know who's missed more, Gallagher missing the header or Kane not getting his foot to the ball at the back post. But that one was a big, big chance. What's slightly encouraging is this is 2 chances carved out from the left flank, which is more than the last 2 games behind where we were very heavy right flank. But we get to halftime. It's 0-0. You can like it or not like it, but England are top in the group right now. So I was never expecting Gareth Southgate to be going nuts with the changes. In fact, I didn't expect any, and it was a pleasant surprise to see Manu. I thought we'd see it after about 60 minutes, not like coming out the locker room. The same names come up, Manu, Wharton, Gordon, Palmer, Watkins. It's always the same handful of names we want to see. But for me, if I'm Southgate, it's halftime, it's 0-0, it's 0-0 in the other game. I'm probably waiting 15, 20 minutes and seeing what I do. But we do get one switch, which I like, Manu for Gallagher. I was always going to like it. I wanted Manu to start since the Belgium friendly. What would you do at halftime in this exact scenario?
Yeah, I don't think I would have done any changes. Same with you. I would have given it more time because quite simply you don't really need to. Again, I think my message would have been, play a bit quicker. Like if when we're going forward, let's go forward. Like have the confidence to, if Kane drops in, get in behind him.
Yeah.
Have a couple of runners, and I think again that's been our strength because defensively, we look pretty solid, but we're also playing very, very, very safe.
Yeah. I don't think Sterling ever got enough credit for how well he replaced Kane at centre forward during his England tenure.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
numbers and boatload of goals those two combined for in their peak. Like I said, is Jude a better player? Yeah. Is Saka great? Yeah. But the numbers aren't getting replaced since prime Sterling has dipped off the England scene. They're not. 49th minute, nice little combination. Manu and Jude. Donovan says Manu's deployed higher and it's a tactical change. I just think it's a different player. I think England have a system where Rice is a designated 6, Jude's obviously a 10, and where the other midfielder goes depends on if we have the ball or not or if we're defending. I just think habitually Manu is going to do different things to Conor Gallagher, different strengths, and as a result, the team looks a little different. And just to catch the listeners up on the story so far, as it stands, England are top with 5 points, Slovenia have 3 points, so they're going through to the Euro second round. And in the other game, Denmark and Serbia. Denmark have 3, so they're going through as it stands. And Serbia need a goal or they're out. So it's a tight group with all 4 teams fighting for that spot in the last round. There's a cross comes in, Kane heads it back across to nobody. Again, it's a glaring difference to the time the Slovenians get a cross in. There's always Sparar and there's always Sesko. England get a corner. It's a 4-0 advantage in corners right now, so we're obviously not getting murdered in the game. We're just not really opening up in the final third. It's a forward and shot. It's miles wide. It's a good start. There's a lot of possession. There is a bank of 4 approach from Slovenia where we are not beating people off the dribble. We are not finding ourselves 2v1, 3v2 numbers up to goal. We're possessing it. We're playing, but they're very, very good. They're very, very organized. I know we're not allowed to say that because we're just supposed to criticize England, but I found Slovenia very impressive. At some point, you tip your hat. Well, what are your thoughts on the opening of the second half?
Yeah, same as you, and I think a lot of countries now, we're in 2024, so a lot of countries, if they don't have possession of the ball, tend to be pretty solid and organized defending. Which then asks the question of, the team that's dominating possession, like how do you pull them out of them positions?
Beat them off the dribble or combine one touch around the box is, I believe, the true answer.
Yeah, and then you go back to, you're just using the example Sterling. That's exactly what he did, and that isn't really happening now. You look at, again, Foden. I love Foden, but what he wants to do is little combination plays, nice, smart, clinical passes to drag players out and playing around them. And I don't think there's anybody sort of on the same page at the moment. And again, I look at, Bellingham. If he's in his Real Madrid team, they're unlocking that team very, very differently than how England are unlocking them. Yeah. Foden's, again, very, very different in at Man City. So I think as a group, we don't know what style we're doing to try and unlock that type of organized, disciplined defensive approach that Slovenia were doing.
Just quickly, Shaun, I've just done a quick Google search of transfer market to get a numerical value here. And Sterling in his England career played in 15 European qualifiers, 10 goals and 13 assists. That is 23 goal contributions in 15 games in European qualifying campaigns. And it's also 3 goals and 2 assists in the tournament themselves. That probably doesn't count the penalty to win the last semi-final. So special player Raheem Sterling, who got a narrative that went against him with many fans for a while, and I thought it was unjustified, and I like Saka, but I simply don't believe the argument can be made that Sterling's been replaced yet. 54th minute, we see the best of Kane, and we actually see the dynamic of Jude replacing him as a 9. He comes into kind of a deep right wing. He spots Bellingham. It's a magnificent pass. Jude messes up his first touch. I have a gut feeling that the pass was so good, I'm not even sure where Jude expected it to reach him because there's like a half-yard window for Kane to find him. And the first touch is off. But that was nice to see. That's probably the long-term vision of England, right? Kane leaving the 9 spot and Jude crashing in to score goals like he did against Serbia. We got some life from England. There's a corner. Stones has a header blocked. Then we have a free kick. Saka tries a bike, kicks Sporar in the face. There's Sporar again. He's defending now. It's better from England, minutes 45 to 60. It's definitely better. You're never out your chair thinking they're going to score, but they're on top of the game, which they certainly weren't in the first half. It's like lots of possession. It's even sharp, I think. It's in some interesting positions. but they're never broken around. He drags down Sporar in the 68th minute, gets himself a yellow card. Matt Sporar's my man. But he's a stat that comes on the screen between minutes 60 and 65. 71% of the ball for England, 556 to 164 in passes completed. But again, you're not really carving out real chances, and you got a world-class goalkeeper up the other end. So it's still game on. We get a highly anticipated sub on the 70th minute, and it is Mr. Cole Palmer. I rate him. I don't know if he was as good as suggested in the 20 minutes. I mean, he has the one chance that he fires right at Sporar, but I think he was largely crowded out, but after showing some quality like everybody else, to be quite honest with you. And the one thing that did worry me was if you take Saka off and you've got now Palmer and Foden, are you taking away the threat of speed in behind? With that said, what did we create in behind, right? There's somewhat of a build on the right side. There's an overload. Kane gets dragged down by the captain, Beal, who gets a yellow card. We're getting somewhere. 75th minute, actually. Declan Rice, of all people. Little 1-2 with Foden, which, again, how do you break down a low block? A quick 1-2. Rice drills his shot wide. We get a sub from Slovenia. Sesko's off, and veteran striker Ilicic comes on. And if you were to ask AI to draw a veteran Slovenian or Eastern European forward, it probably looks exactly like this dude. I was almost convinced just from his face that he was going to get the winner. But we're about to go into the last 15. What are your thoughts on the game at this point? Do we realize the draw's going to top the group, or do we roll the dice to win?
I mean, I remember how I was feeling. I actually watched this game twice. And I just couldn't believe at the lack of intensity to that point with the England team. So at that point, you're just like, okay, I'll just take a tie.
Yeah.
But I must admit, when I got to that point, my soul was checked out. I wasn't, we talk about, the general England fan consensus, like it's job done. Now, the question for me is that enough for a team like this?
Yes. Yes.
Then you
I
just
believe momentum and slumps are very overrated concepts. I don't believe if we won all 3 games 3-0 would be any more likely to beat Slovakia tomorrow. You might feel a bit differently emotionally, but at the end of the day, how many times have you been feeling yourself and being slapped and told yourself you were overconfident? I'm maybe too much like Southgate. It would have took a Denmark goal to bother me.
Well, so there you go. So there's the answer, I think. You have your own personal, is this enough? Yes. Then you just, as you were, you grind out the victory.
What do you think? Let's say we won this game 4-0. We're still sat here. We're still playing Slovakia tomorrow. It still starts 0-0. And you're still, to me, as likely to lose a game and say you were overconfident because you won the last game 4-0 as you are to say you started slow because you drew 0-0. I don't see the connection everyone sees between these separate events.
I think the question is, you have a responsibility to the game itself on a deeper level. Like, you can be a coach, and Italy have been famous for it. They'll grind out a win, do whatever they need to do. And I think this comes down to, you as a coach, you as a person, and what you want for the game. Is it enough to win it and every game be 0-0 and you're winning extra time 1-0 with?
Yes. And
Some people are happy with that.
if we do win this, you'll agree with me. Yes.
Or is there an entertainment point? And I think this, like, we go back to, and I'm going back over the generations here. The teams that you love are the teams that win, but win with a bit of entertainment.
Yeah, but they're the ones that win because if we're honest, a man who was ahead of his time in terms of bombing forward, tactically attacking, entertaining, loving the fans was Kevin Keegan. Ahead of his time.
Oh,
England fans hated him. Hated him. Because we lost the game 3-2 to Romania and we went out in the group stage. So all this pleased the fans. They're going to turn on you either way. Is it possible to me that Gareth Southgate, over his England career, has got to the point where he's attacked and ran up massive scores in qualifiers? Because he has, by the way. All this, the teams never score is nonsense. England have railed teams 5-0, 6-0, 7-0 in qualifying. England smashed Ukraine. Was it 4-0 in the last Euros? We've been there and done it on the battering teams. But Modric ran all over us in the Croatia game we lost. Italy were all over us in the Euro final. As part of him became really, really hardened and started to coach for these knife-edge gladiatorial last 8 Final Four games. And honestly, if that's what it is, I'm all right with it, man. Now he's going to pay the price if he loses tomorrow. If he loses to Switzerland in the last 8, he pays the price. But if he gets to the semi-final and he wins 1-0, I don't think you'll feel like you feel right now.
What you've got to bear in mind here, Stuart, is we've spoke about this before, but I am very much in the Bielsa school of coaching, where I just, it's like, we all know if you just stay in and save your money and invest it correctly and get a good night's sleep, you're going to feel great tomorrow and you're going to have money for tomorrow. But it's a bit boring and we've only got one life. That's my argument is like, okay, if tomorrow is the last game for England, let's just have a bit of fun with it.
You have every right to feel like that, brother. I don't. Because he's the difference with me. I'm watching this game. I'm not bored. I love Andres Sporra to a weird level. Like, it's not right. 2, I'm always like, are Denmark going to score? It's like drama. I'm not bored.
Slovenia.
No, Denmark. Because if Denmark would have scored,
okay, yeah,
that would have absolutely shifted everything. I love defending.
I don't know.
I appreciate it.
I think one of the other differences that we have here is 2 of the games have been played at, we've got the 9 a.m. game. And for me, at 9 a.m., I need a little bit of entertainment to wake me up, Stuart.
So just to confirm, Southgate should be considering the time zone you live in.
No, if it was, 8 o'clock.
And would England play differently if you moved to New York?
I mean, if it was later in the day, and you've had a stressful day, and they just play a little bit slower, then I might be okay with it. So, yeah.
Well, if we go to a semi-final, mate, I hope it's a late game. In case he listens to this. Anyway, the game's not finished yet. 81st minutes. There's a lovely bit of play. Palmer, Jude, and Mainu all with an overload. It's nice to see, isn't it? But ultimately, they crowded out like the rest of the game. I'm really, again, they're not bored. To me, the Slovenia thing, it's phenomenal. I mean, you are talking to a guy who coached the Michigan Stars and won my one pro trophy, the most enjoyable experience of my life, and 9 clean sheets in 10 games. So has that shaped me? Absolutely. But I'm loving this on both ends, to be honest with you. There's a Foden shot blocked. There's a Palmer cross cleared. They're
you're frozen, Stuart.
Oh, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back.
All right.
Yeah.
There's a Palmer shot block, cross cleared. There's a Foden shot blocked. And then we get a weird sub. I'm defending Gareth. This is a weird sub. About the 84th minute, Cal Walker to left back, Trippier for Trent. I don't know, man. What do you think of that?
Again, why?
Yeah, I don't know with that one. I'm not gonna. I don't know.
But again,
That's a weird sub.
is this just ticking a box?
Maybe, maybe strange, but like,
Yeah.
didn't make logical sense to me. Sporar and Milica are off, so that's my enjoyment of Slovenia done. Stankovic and Sella are on. 89th minute, lovely first touch out the sky from Cole Palmer wins a free kick. I nearly said Carlton Palmer then. Very different players. Very different. Wide free kick headed away by this blue wall. Then Anthony Gordon. Yeah, I guess he should have done more with the 87 seconds of regulation time that he got. I understand the sub, Gordon for Foden. It's about 10 minutes too late. But sorry, say that again.
No, I was agreeing. Yeah, 10 minutes too late.
Yeah. Now, amazingly, believe it or not, Gordon has set up two shots despite subbing on at the 89th minute. He's not even the latest sub. Slovenia, Balkovic on for Janza. I don't know these players, if I'm honest. I won't pretend to, but I'm assuming this is all hands on deck. Get this point that qualifies us for the second round. We have a move for England with all the subs involved. Gordon to Manu, lovely little backheel flick to Palmer, to Kane, sorry. Kane finds Palmer, gets a shot, 16 yards out, just outside the post, straight at Oblak. For me, it's a bad finish, especially when you're talking about such a top-end keeper. You're going to need to do better than that. And then it's over. So if I'm going to be optimistic, England have got arguably two of their starting back four out, and they have completed the group stage with the lowest XG in the tournament. It looks a little bit ugly up front. There's always room to improve. There's training sessions to improve. I'm not too bothered. Somewhat fortunate. Razor thin group. No team in the group scored more than 2 goals. No player in the group scored more than 1 goal. Fantasy football nightmare. But for me, you take your lessons, you move on, you do your training sessions, and then you start the game 0-0 tomorrow. I think it's very much a skill to constantly reset rather than carry one event to the next. How are you feeling, Shaun?
I said to you before this. I've never been so confused by a team, I think, in my life. And when I look at it, I'm also not surprised because not a great deal has changed. But I don't know. I would love to know. Like, do you know what style they play, England? Do you know
I don't know if it's a
what
style.
they're trying to do?
I don't know if it's
Like, what are they trying to do?
I don't know if it's a style, but I can see patterns. You know, I can see Foden trying to come in and almost like have a design where it's supposed to be Jude and Foden V16. I can see on the right hand side, Cal Walker coming on the inside shoulder. Sorry, the inside shoulder of the opposing fullback. So he's got Walker on one side and Saka on the other. I can see Kane coming, and I'm assuming the theory is he gets replaced and he doesn't. I can see them trying to have Rice, and especially when Mena was on break lines. Are they doing it very well? No, but I think I can see some basic patterns. I don't think they're that different to the USA patterns, actually, in what they're intending to do in the system they're trying to play.
We're not going there, are we?
No, but I'm just sat here in America watching USA, and I just find the two teams pretty similar.
Do you know what I honestly think part of the issue is? I sort of touched on it briefly. I think a lot of these players play for very, strong head coaches. in the domestic season that have very, very clear identities and what the jobs and the roles are. And then it comes to England under Southgate, and it's kind of like trying to do bits of all of them things.
But what can he do, Shaun, when you've got how many sessions do you think he has per game with England?
I would go simpler. I would make it simple. I don't think it needs um, complicated patterns. I think you could strip it back a little bit and be more effective.
Fair enough.
You know, I think if you put talented players in the final third, they will, and just give them license to be creative and go forward. I think they will find the solution.
I mean, is there an argument he is? Is Saka playing that different to how he plays for Arsenal? Is Foden playing that different to how he plays for City? I'm not watching Kane at Bayern, if I'm honest, but I've never seen Kane play different stylistically than he does for England. And Jude, I didn't watch a lot of Madrid games, but he appears to be a box crashing 10 there. I'm sure he's doing it better in Madrid than he is for England right now. Trippier is the one who was out of position. Trent was the one who was out of position.
Yeah, it's just again, it's just bizarre to me. It's like
Saka's a left back now. If you listen to Twitter, that's going to be.
No, I think they'll be okay tomorrow. Again, my thing is when it's quarterfinals, semi-finals. Like, do we have the answers to go in like 1-0 down? Are we able to, we play against Germany? Do we play the same way? Are we going to be as slow as we've been against other countries, against teams like that? Again, just I watched the Germany game today, and it's just very clear the speed, the intensity that they do it at. It's just very, very different to England.
Germany's very good. Italy, though, not so much.
No, Italy looked a mess.
Yeah.
They almost the same. Sorry?
The tournaments are hard, man. That's why I'm not crying about where England are. Here's the thing tomorrow. Like, if we were playing Belgium tomorrow, everyone would be worried. Slovakia beat Belgium.
Yeah.
These aren't bombs.
I think Belgium, though, are having very similar to England in, where theirs is a little bit disjointed.
Yeah. So who's your 11 tomorrow?
I think I would start Mainu.
I would start Mainu next to Rice and
because and this is why I say it. I don't like double pivots. I don't think you need like two conservative like.
I don't see double pivot, Shaun. I know everyone says it, but like when England have the ball, that eight's high. Like when the other team has the ball, are we back defending? Yes. That to me, that's not a double pivot. That's defending. That's marking your man.
But if you've got, a Mainu who's a little bit more dynamic, unpredictable in that middle, a little bit more creative, and then you can have Rice be the more sort of disciplined one that's making things tick. Give Mainu a little bit more of a little bit more freedom in the middle to be creative. Yeah. And then, Bellingham has to start, Foden. Yeah. And then Kane.
Yeah. I'd like to see one of two things. I'd like to see Rice, Mainu, Bellingham, or I'd like to see Rice, Jude, Foden with Gordon on the left wing. I'd like to see Luke Shaw back, but that's not a personnel decision. So before we move on, we are going to do a best 11 of Group C. I'm not going to do the full group stage because unless you watched all the games, I don't think your opinion's relevant. But I watch a lot of Group C. I've got mine written down. You can nominate anyone you want, but for goalkeeper, it's a good goalkeeping group. It's a good goalkeeping group. You got Oblak, La Liga Player of the Year. You got Jordan Pickford, just tied the record for clean sheets in a major tournament for England. You got Kasper Schmeichel, former Premier League champion with Leicester City. My vote's with Oblak. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll go with that one.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Left back for me was Janza from Slovenia. Phenomenal. Kieran Trippier certainly didn't play badly. For all the, disjointment of the England left side and attack, Kieran Trippier is still, to me, one of the best defenders on earth. But based on what I saw, Janza from Slovenia at left back. Denmark played a back three, and Serbia don't remember the left back. What's your thoughts for left back?
Yeah, I have no opinion on left back. I don't.
So centre back,
I would probably do a Denmark and go free and get rid of left back.
all right. Centre back, I've went Stones over Gahey. Gahey's got a lot of praise. I think Gahey has got that praise because people were expecting worse and were taking John Stones for granted. Gahey's give the ball away a few times for me. There's a couple of fouls in the Denmark game where I thought he was struggling. I think Stones has played better, so well that he's barely been noticed in a team that's barely let a goal in. So it's Stones for me next to Bijol, Slovenia again. Christensen played well. The Serbian who Mark Kane played well, but ultimately let a goal in. So for me, it's Stones and Bijol of Slovenia at centre back. Any nominations, overruling, objections?
No, I would have the one you just mentioned, Christensen. But
Christensen, all right.
Yeah, but we can go with that.
Right back. Kyle Walker v. Karnisnik. Karnisnik was phenomenal. For me, I'd put Walker in. England's back four has given up one goal, and it was a worldie off the post. And while not being credited with the assist, Kyle Walker was actually involved in both the England goals. He played it to Saka before the cross to Jude for the first goal, and he was involved in the build-up for the Denmark goal when it looked like the Danish guy didn't even know where he was, and he stripped him.
That was amazing.
Yeah, I think Kyle Walker has arguably been England's best player at the tournament.
Yeah.
Centre mid. Before I go with my three, you got any nominations? Anyone you feel strongly about at centre mid?
Ericsson.
Yeah, spoiler, I put no England players in here, even though we won the group. I went with Ericsson. Thought he was man of the match for England. Hjulmand, who not only scored that worldie against England, but I thought him and Højbjerg were pretty dominant and ran the game against an England team that just had 71% possession in the game we talked about. They certainly didn't have anything like that against Denmark. And then a wild card, but I was impressed with him, Milinkovic-Savic of Serbia. I think he played for Napoli, was it? In Saudi Arabia. Oh, okay. I thought he was excellent in England's opening game, caused some real problems. And then people are going to laugh at this, but I've went with the England front three. And the reason I've went with the England front three is no team scored more than 2 goals. No player scored more than 1 goal. Foden, to be honest with you, has done as well as any winger I've seen, has got shots off. He's not really interplayed with Kane well, but I think he's been lively. Saka created the goal against Serbia, which was obviously the decisive goal of the group stage. Without that goal, England would be toiling right now. And Kane, he's not been great. I've certainly seen Harry Kane play better than this, but I'll put it to you. Front three players, who's been better? Some star names in the group: Vlahovic, Mitrovic, Højlund from Man United, Sporar.
Again, I don't think the standard for the strikers was particularly great over the games.
So it's hard to argue. Let's be honest, it was brutal. Yeah. 2 goals in 3 games, all the teams.
Yeah, I mean, if you can put a defender in up front, that's one of the ones that have been scoring all the own goals that we keep seeing. But yeah, I couldn't put an argument for anybody.
All right. So, goalkeeper, All Black Slovenia. Left back, Janza Slovenia. Centre back, Stones England. All Slovenia. Right back, Carl Walker, England. By the way, I can't believe I'm sat here reading out this many Slovenian names, but I feel pretty strongly about how well they played. Milinkovic, Savic from Serbia, Hjulmand and Eriksson from Denmark, Ford and Saka Kane from England. But I'm interested. And the reason I'm interested now is for all the criticism of England. We're recording this on Saturday night. Switzerland were brilliant today. Dynamite. Blew Italy off the field. If Switzerland were happen to play England in the quarters and the game's boring again, at some point it's the Floyd Mayweather effect, and England are just very good at defending. And as much as England struggled against Slovenia here, if Slovenia go out in their second round game and they get murdered, fair enough. But if they don't, and it's 0-0 or it's 1-1, you've got to start seeing this through different eyes, in my opinion. I know they won 2-0. I thought Germany were...
And I think
fortunately Denmark today. With the VAR and the penalty 30 seconds apart.
I think you're... Oh my God. That was ridiculous.
What?
Absolutely ridiculous.
What?
That offside.
Oh, yeah.
The offside and the handball, and then two things being equal is...
Yeah.
I don't know.
Would the exact same players in reverse, would they have disallowed that for Germany?
Yeah.
Worth asking. In Germany.
Yeah, one thing going back to the England argument, I think your argument is purely based on the result. If they win.
Well, yeah. But then again, Switzerland today, they look great. If they go to England and the game's rubbish and boring, well, all their strengths have been nullified. At some point, not by accident. It's the Floyd Mayweather effect, Shaun.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think like Floyd won. He beat everybody.
And everyone super aggressive would get into a ring with him and it would just look different. If Switzerland could play England, and I'm not overlooking Slovenia because Slovakia, sorry, I think if we win tomorrow, it's by a goal. I do. But if they look dull against England, that's because they're playing England. It's not because they're a dull team.
We'll see, won't we? We'll see. I'm going
to be on.
I don't know. I'm not confident. If they play how they've been playing, they won't win the tournament. They might stutter through them tomorrow, but I don't. They have to improve. They have to improve.
You're right.
There has to be runs in behind. There has to be Foden linking up with Kane. It has to be a little bit more creativity. The subs have to be made like at the right times. Like
I'll be honest. I'll be honest with you, Shaun. If England fire tomorrow, I do think they win by 2 or 3 goals. If it looks coherent and it looks smooth and Saka's in behind and Kane looks like prime Kane and Foden's balling like he did in the Premier League, yeah, I think England win 2-3-0. I'm not expecting that. I'm still expecting England to win. And then
it has to improve. There's no way it's staying down here and we win.
Fine margins, brother. Can I give you a scenario? We stumble past Slovakia, which is nothing impressive. We stumble past Switzerland, which is nothing impressive. You're in the semi-finals, Shaun.
Yeah, I don't think they stumble past Switzerland.
Yeah, we'll see.
They might play well and beat Switzerland, but
you know what I think? I think if we beat Switzerland, everyone's just going to say Switzerland weren't any good anyway. That would be very England fan base.
I don't know. I think Switzerland, though, Switzerland aren't going to have a bad game. Like, they look organised. You know, Switzerland are going to play how Switzerland play. Like, there's not going to be a change. You know, and I think you can say that for, for the majority, how they're going to play, and you know they're going to be consistent. Where the teams that are, you know, England, Italy, these types, you don't know what you're going to get. I have no idea what England team is going to turn up.
Here's my guess.
Like this morning with Italy.
Here's my guess. Pickford makes 2 to 4 saves. England see more of the ball, 55 to 60%. England nick a goal, maybe 2. England win. The final margin's 1 goal. Everyone's raging. There's my prediction. What's yours?
I really just want to say, I'm going to say 2-0 England, and it looks a damn sight better.
That would be exciting.
That's
exciting.
That's optimistic fan, Shaun is saying.
Keep it. I like this guy. Keep him
on. Yeah, it's, you know, it's for me interesting to see and watch. I'm not getting. I'm keeping it at arm's length. I'm just very confused at what I'm seeing, and I don't necessarily understand it.
Yeah, understandable.
I imagine this is what it's like being like a Tottenham fan. You know, you've got the quality, but you just don't know which team's going to turn up.
And we're going to sell Jude soon. All right. Okay, so looking forward to the game tomorrow. Shaun, been a pleasure. Hope to have you back on. Thank you for listening. See you next week.
Hey there, Stuart.